On the morning of March 11, 2026, an IT administrator sat down at her desk and discovered that Copilot had vanished from every machine she managed. Not disabled, not hidden. Gone, uninstalled silently, overnight, by a routine Windows security update. The update number was KB5053598. Microsoft had pressed send on a patch that deleted its own flagship AI product from millions of Windows computers without asking anyone. It took Microsoft 6 days to officially acknowledge the problem. 6 days to confirm what users already knew. The company suggested reinstalling Copilot manually from the Microsoft Store as a temporary fix, and provided no timeline for when things would return to normal. That is the state of Windows in 2026. The company forcing Copilot into every corner of the operating system you paid for has become so tangled inside its own product that a standard security patch can erase it without warning. This is the story of how that happened, what it cost, and why the damage is not a bug. It is the result. In late 2022, ChatGPT broke into mainstream awareness practically overnight. Microsoft had a significant investment in OpenAI, and it panicked. Not the quiet internal kind of panic. The kind that produces impossible deadlines, reorganized teams, and directives that override every lesson the company learned about rushing software. The message that went through Redmond was simple: get AI into everything. Windows, Office, Edge, Teams, Azure, every product surface, every customer touchpoint. Now, what followed was not a careful integration. It was a flood. Copilot appeared in the taskbar, the Settings app, File Explorer, Notepad, the Snipping tool, the Photos app, widgets, and the notification system. Microsoft gave Copilot its own physical key on new keyboards, the first meaningful change to the standard Windows layout in roughly 30 years. The company renamed its entire productivity suite after the product, retiring a brand that had existed since 1990. They built a new class of hardware around it. They called them Copilot Plus PCs. And here is the part that matters for this conversation. Microsoft did not build any of this because users asked for it. The documentation of that fact came later, and we will get there. First, look at the product they built. Right now, if you have Windows 11, you have a version of Copilot on your machine. You may not have opened it once. It does not matter. In recent testing by Windows Latest, the Windows 11 Copilot app was found to consume up to 1 GB of RAM while running in the background, doing nothing. Sitting there, idle, eating memory that was yours before this feature arrived. Here's what makes that specific number important. Copilot for Windows is no longer a native application. Microsoft rebuilt it as a web app, carrying its own private copy of Microsoft Edge bundled inside. If you open Task Manager and look for the RAM culprit, you will not find it listed as Copilot. It identifies itself as Browser. The company that spent 2 years telling you Copilot was going to transform your relationship with Windows shipped a product that disguises itself in your own Task Manager. In July 2026, Microsoft began testing a new feature inside that same app called PC Insights. The idea is that you can ask Copilot why your computer feels slow, and it will analyze your CPU, RAM, and GPU usage and answer in plain English. The irony that Windows Latest documented, and that PC Gamer and Hot Hardware both picked up, is that Copilot itself consistently appears among the top memory-consuming processes in Task Manager, right alongside applications like Excel. The tool diagnosing your slow PC is one of the reasons your PC is slow. If that were the entire story, it would be a product failure. A misjudged feature that needed more work. What makes it a structural problem is what happened when Microsoft tried to step back. On March 20, 2026, 9 days after that accidental deletion of Copilot from millions of machines, the president of Windows and Devices at Microsoft published a public blog post. His name is Pavan Davuluri. The post committed to something Microsoft had never formally acknowledged before. The company had gone too far with Copilot, and they were pulling it back. The specific language Davuluri used was that Microsoft would be more intentional about how and where Copilot integrates across Windows, focusing on experiences that are genuinely useful and well-crafted. What that meant in practice was a removal of Copilot entry points from Notepad, the snipping tool, the Photos app, and widgets. In Notepad specifically, the Copilot logo that had been sitting in the top right corner of a text editor that users have relied on since 1985 was stripped away. The underlying AI feature stayed, but it was quietly renamed Writing Tools. Microsoft did not want the brand in the room anymore. This admission did not come out of nowhere. It came after a year of documented backlash that included user comments, public polling, and a product that was refusing to perform. The Copilot keyboard key, introduced at CES in January 2024, became one of the clearest symbols of the problem. On many new Windows laptops and desktops, OEMs replaced the right control key or the context menu key with a dedicated Copilot button for power users, for accessibility users, for anyone who relied on those keys in their daily workflows. It was an interruption. Support documentation from Microsoft eventually confirmed the company realized this, stating that the Copilot key caused disruption to productivity and accessibility workflows for customers relying on the right control key or context menu key for keyboard shortcuts or assistive technologies such as screen readers. The fix, remapping the key, was announced in mid-2026. New PCs were still shipping with the key. The confession from Davuluri was real. The rollback of entry points was real. And at the same moment those concessions were being made in public, something else was happening on millions of business computers. Between mid-June and mid-July 2026, Microsoft automatically installed the Microsoft 365 Copilot app on commercial Windows devices across enterprise environments worldwide. Not offered it, not suggested it, installed it. This was confirmed in Admin Center Notification MC 1152323. The rollout targeted any machine running Windows 10 22H2 or later, or Windows 11, that already had Microsoft 365 desktop apps installed, meaning Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or Outlook. The Copilot app arrived silently, through the standard update channel, without explicit administrator consent and without user notification. Enterprise administrators discovered it pinned to their taskbars the same way they discovered Teams years ago, and the same way they discovered the new Edge browser in 2020. After the fact, this was not the first attempt. Microsoft tried a version of this in early 2024 and paused after enterprise backlash. Tried again in late 2024 and paused again, this time attributing the halt to a technical issue. The opt-out policy that administrators needed to block the June 2026 wave was added to the administrative templates only in May 2026, weeks before the rollout began. One enterprise engineer, quoted in Windows It Pro forums, described managing 15,000 endpoints and finding a new policy buried in a cluttered admin center as looking for a needle in a field. Microsoft committed not to reinstall the app for 90 days after a manual removal. That commitment alone tells you the default assumption. You remove it, they wait 90 days, then the clock resets. Now here is the detail that the coverage largely underplayed. Devices registered in the European Economic Area were entirely exempt from this rollout. Not delayed. Exempt. The reason is the Digital Markets Act, the EU regulation that designates Microsoft as a gatekeeper and prohibits pre-installing software without giving users a genuine and informed choice, with fines of up to 10% of global annual turnover for violations. The same regulation had already forced Microsoft to unbundle Teams from Microsoft 365 subscriptions across Europe. The legal team at Microsoft made a judgment. What they were doing in the United States, Canada, and Australia could not survive Digital Markets Act scrutiny in Europe. The exemption is an admission. 3 days later, on June 26, 2026, Italy moved. The Autorità Garante della Concorrenza e del Mercato, the Competition Authority of Italy, opened a formal investigation into Microsoft Ireland operations and Microsoft Corporation. The allegation was that Microsoft had bundled Copilot and Designer into Microsoft 365 subscriptions, raised subscription prices by up to 30%. and failed to adequately inform consumers or give them a meaningful choice about either the features or the price increase. The investigation was triggered by a complaint from an Italian consumer association filed the previous month. This is the first major European antitrust action focused specifically on the bundling of generative AI services into core productivity software. If the authority finds a violation, Microsoft could face fines and be required to offer subscription options that do not include Copilot. In that scenario, customers would be choosing Copilot rather than being enrolled in it. Italy is not alone. The Competition and Markets Authority in the United Kingdom has its own review underway, examining the bundling of Windows, Word, Excel, Teams, and Copilot, with a conclusion expected by February 2027. The Federal Trade Commission in the United States has also been examining AI bundling and cloud licensing practices at Microsoft. In 2023, the AgCM fined Microsoft for bundling Teams with Microsoft 365 without giving customers an opt-out. That fine eventually led to the Teams unbundling across European markets. The pattern is not subtle. If you are running Windows 11 on a desktop or laptop right now, here is a practical accounting of what Copilot integration has cost you without your input. A product you did not install is consuming up to 1 GB of your RAM while doing nothing, and it lists itself in your task manager under a name that is not its name. Every time you open that task manager and see browser near the top of the memory column, that is Copilot watching your machine slow down from the inside. If your employer uses Microsoft 365, that same web app arrived on your work machine between June and July of this year, unless someone in your IT department knew to look for an opt-out policy added only weeks before the rollout began, or unless you happen to be based in Europe, where the Digital Markets Act made the whole exercise illegal before it started. Windows Recall, the feature Microsoft announced in May 2024 as photographic memory for your PC, is still not running on more than 90% of Windows 11 machines. The University of Pennsylvania issued a formal statement calling it presenting substantial and unacceptable security, legality, and privacy challenges, and urged administrators to disable it. Security researcher Alexander Hagena, who built a tool specifically demonstrating how easily the original Recall database could be harvested, published new vulnerability findings in 2026 against the rebuilt version. Microsoft is reportedly reconsidering whether to keep the Recall name at all. Here is the market verdict on the product behind all of this. Microsoft 365 has more than 450 million paid commercial seats. After roughly 2 years of Copilot being positioned as the future of productivity, approximately 15 million of those seats converted to paying Copilot users. That is a conversion rate of 3.3%. A Recon Analytics survey of more than 150,000 paid AI subscribers in the United States found the market share held by Copilot falling from 18.8% in July 2025 to 11.5% by January 2026, a 39% contraction in 6 months. When workers have access to Copilot alongside ChatGPT, the selection rate for Copilot drops to 18%. Add Gemini as a third option, and only 8% choose Copilot. The product users are choosing when they have a choice is not the one Microsoft is forcing onto their machines when they do not. The personal computer was built on a specific promise. The machine on your desk belongs to you. The software on it serves you. What runs in the background at startup is something you chose, or at minimum, something you were told about. That was the compact. Copilot did not break that compact with bad intentions. It broke it because the incentive structure at Microsoft made the compact impossible to keep. Wall Street demanded an AI response. Revenue targets required conversion. Conversion required presence. Presence required forcing the product into every surface of an operating system that 1 billion people depend on, and into enterprise environments through the same update channels used for security patches, and onto keyboards through OM relationships that put a permanent button where a useful key used to be. When the Windows president at Microsoft publicly admits the company went too far, when a security patch accidentally deletes the very product the company spent billions forcing into Windows, when Italy opens the first major antitrust investigation into AI bundling on the same week that automatic enterprise installs go out, and when the market data shows users choosing alternatives at 9-to-1 odds the moment they have a real choice. You are not looking at a product that needs improvement. You are looking at what happens when a trillion-dollar company decides your computer is a distribution channel. If you have been watching this channel, you already knew something was wrong. The comment I want from you today is specific. Open Task Manager right now and check the memory column. Tell me the top 3 processes on your machine. Your answers shape the next investigation. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. This channel exists because someone needs to keep connecting these dots.